So good, so good. Hey, I know everybody in here, you're aware, you're very familiar with John Hokey. You remember John Hokey? He's the guy who was famous for inventing the hokey pokey. You know, everybody, as far as I know, everybody's very well aware of the details of his life and everything that happened in his life, you know, but very few people know about what happened when he died. He, they had a nice funeral. Hundreds of people showed up for John's funeral, and they took his body and they began to put it gently into the coffin. Well, everything was great until they put his right foot in, and then things just sort of went wheels off from there. All right. That was a hokey joke. That's what it's all about. That's right. What if the hokey pokey really is what it's all about? No. I am Cole Phillips, the lead pastor here at the Konnection Church. I want to welcome you here today. All right. If you're here in beautiful Buda, with us in San Marcos, we have an incredible San Marcos campus as well. And some people are logging on, joining us online. But you know, at the Konnection Church, we are a family. And we're a family expecting guests. So we know we've got a lot of VIPs in the house. We got people checking this out for the first time. We hope that you feel right at home, that you'll keep coming back. And I do want to thank everyone who did such a great job just blessing our team, our pastors last week for Pastor Appreciation. That meant so much to us, was such a great encouragement to us, and it's a blessing and an honor to be able to serve with you and alongside of you. So we thank you for that. And so today something's going on today. It's a holiday of sorts, and you know, one of the things we think about is like classic movie monsters. Everybody's got favorite classic movie monsters. I was really into that when I was a kid. And one that I remember well is The Mummy. You guys remember, The Mummy, right? who's has died, and they embalmed the mummy, and they wrapped the mummy up, and the mummy has come back to life, sort of, right? Sort of. Not fully alive, but just kind of alive. And there may be some people here in this room, you may be like that. You may feel like that mummy, like you're living, but you're not really living. You're just sort of existing, sort of going through the motions. And maybe for you, there's some part of your life that you would say is dead or dying. And so today, you're sort of just waiting for God to show up and do something. Maybe you would say you're waiting for a miracle from God today. Well, today, I want us to look at what happened with Jesus one time. He had this friend who was dying. In fact, this friend actually died. And we see this in the Gospel of John chapter 11. We see what happens here. If you want to follow along, we have an app that has all the notes that you can follow along, some fill-in-the-blank notes, and you can save those as well. So we encourage you to do that today. But in John chapter 11, starting with verse 1, what has happened is Jesus' friend Lazarus is very sick. And so his sisters, Mary and Martha, they get word, they send a message to Jesus, and they say, Jesus, you've got to come quickly because Lazarus, he's really sick. And it would be really great if you would show up and you would even heal Lazarus. And so Jesus responds to the message, and he says, well, this sickness and this situation that Lazarus is going through, it's not going to end with Lazarus being dead. But there was a purpose behind what was happening, and that was that God would be glorified through this situation. Well, what does that mean, that God is glorified through this situation? It means that people around would see what they went through. They would see the situation. They would see what God did, And the result of that would be that they would learn to trust God more fully and more deeply than before. All right? How many of you like to watch scary movies? Any scary movie fans in the house? All right. So one in particular that everybody is kind of familiar with, whether or not you watch scary movies or not, is this movie from back in the day called The Sixth Sense. You remember The Sixth Sense? And in this movie, there was this little boy, and in the movie, his name was, you remember, Cole, which happens to be my name. All right? So Cole had this thing going on with him, and he has this famous quote. He said, "I see dead people. I see dead people," right? And you know what? This Cole here also sees dead people. Yeah, I see dead people everywhere I go, in our community, when I go to Walmart, when I'm out to eat, I see dead people, people who are walking around. They're just sort of existing. They're not really fully living. They're just sort of like the walking dead. Did you realize, did you know that you can be dead while you live? You can be dead while you live. There's an example of this in 1 Timothy 5:6, where Paul wrote this. He said, "But the widow who lives for pleasure is dead even while she lives." Dead. Just sort of skimming the surface of life. Monotonous, routine. Going to work, being stuck in a dead-end job, and just feeling like, hey, I'm eating the same bologna sandwich every day. I'm clocking out at the end of the day, just sort of working for the weekend. And some people feel like that. Maybe they're dead in their relationships, stuck in a dead marriage, and you're living under the same roof, but you've just become roommates. Maybe over the past 2 years, and this is getting on toward 2 years with all the COVID craziness and stuff, and there's all this division and all this depression and discouragement and doubt, just all of that. You've been divided and separated and disconnected from relationships, and you're discouraged and you're down. I see people who are dead because they're just existing, hoping that one day something's going to change, but nothing ever seems to change. It just goes on and on. Well, let me tell you what happens next with Lazarus. Jesus, he waited for 2 days. He just waited before he went. And he told his disciples, he said, now Lazarus has died. So now we're going to go see him. Now that he's dead, we're going to go see him. We're going to go and we're going to raise him up. So they went on this journey, and in this story, we're going to see 3 different people who are alive on the outside, but on the inside, there's something dead in their lives. And maybe as we look at these people, you'll relate to what they're going through, and you can say, "Oh, that's kind of like me." So I want to get just to sort of illustrate what we're talking about here. I want to get Rowdy. Is Rowdy back here somewhere? Where is he? Here he is. This is our student pastor. Let's give it up for Pastor Rowdy. All right. Rowdy's going to be our Lazarus. All right. And you feeling good? You're not good. You're not well, man. You're not looking well. We got, is Richard Rodriguez in the house? All right, there's Richard. Okay. I'm going to have Richard wrap him up, because you see in this story, Lazarus had died, right? And so they wrapped him up in these grave clothes. Now, let me tell you, these grave clothes, they were heavy. They were like 1,000 pounds of wrapping. We don't have quite 1,000 pounds, but we got a lot right here. And so we're gonna wrap him up. And these are like death wraps that he's being wrapped in. And maybe you can relate to Thomas. In this story, Thomas was dead in his doubts. Have you heard of Thomas? I doubt it. No, he was doubting Thomas. Doubting Thomas. That's what he was known for, was his doubts. And in John 11:16, it says, then Thomas, also called Didymus, said to the rest of the disciples, let us also go that we may die with him. See, I think he was being sarcastic. You know, sarcasm is one of the many services that I like to offer. He was being sarcastic and come on, let's go. We might as well die with him. He was doubting. He was doubting this was going to work out. Maybe you're also doubting today. Maybe you're dead in your doubts, doubting God. You know, you're going through something right now in your life, and you're crying out to God. And maybe at this point, you're just looking and you're saying, God, are you even real? God, are you even there? God, can you hear me? Do you care about what I'm going through? God, can you do something about what I'm going through? If you care, why don't you do something? And you're just doubting. You're doubting God. You know, dead in your doubts. Some of you are like Thomas. You're being wrapped in these doubt wrappings. You're wrapped up in your doubt today. Maybe you're more like Martha. Martha was dead in her delay. She was dead in her delay. She was always in a hurry. You know, she's kind of a driven person, and Jesus never seemed to move fast enough. Jesus was always taking his time, right? And so in John 11:17, it says, on his arrival, Jesus found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days. Now, 4 days is a long time to be dead. You know, you hear about those people who they die and they're dead for a couple minutes and they come back to life and that sort of thing. But this was like dead. This was like fully dead. 4 days dead, as dead can be. So Martha runs out and she gets in Jesus' face. And she says in verse 21, she says, Lord, Martha said to Jesus, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. This is your fault. Why are you so slow? Why didn't you come? The least you could have done is send a get well card. It would have been better than what you did, right? So she's blaming Jesus. Maybe you're in that place. What you're going through, you're blaming God. God, why didn't you show up sooner? If you just had done something, and you're in your delay, you're dead in your delay, you're waiting to meet that special someone to spend your life with. Maybe you're waiting for someone to be healed that you love, or maybe it's yourself. You're praying, and it seems like God is not doing anything about it, like he's moving too slowly. You know, it's funny. We say to God, we try to trust him, but we're like, do it now, show up now. We put God on our timeline, right? But the thing is, check it out. God has perfect timing. He's never early. He's never late. He's right on time. But we got to remember that God's delays are not God's denials. God is just preparing us for what he's prepared for us. So God is working while we're waiting. And God hasn't forgotten you. He sees you. And he's working. He's moving. All right? But maybe you're being wrapped up in this delay. Mary was dead in her discouragement. You doing all right over there? You doing good? Hey, look, yeah, you're getting wrapped. Hey, do you know what a mummy's favorite kind of music is? Rap. It's rap music, yes. Okay. Okay. John 11:20. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went out to meet him, but Mary stayed home. See, Martha was mad, but at least she got out and she went to see Jesus. But Mary, she was so discouraged. She's like, I'm not putting on my makeup for this. I'm not getting all dressed up to go and see Jesus. I mean, it's too late. It's already over. There's no use. It's done. I mean, it sounds crazy that Mary wouldn't even go see Jesus. Maybe you can relate to Mary, and you're saying, you know, I've tried everything. I've tried to overcome this addiction in my life, but no matter what I do, I've tried to get counseling, I've tried to get help, and I've tried everything, and I'm always going to be this way, and nothing's ever going to change, and I'm never going to be happy, and you're dead in your discouragement. And they began, you see all the crying, you know, because Lazarus has died. So when Jesus saw Martha weeping, and the Jews who had come along with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in spirit and troubled. Where have you laid him? He asked. Come and see, Lord, they replied. Jesus wept. Y'all know that verse, Jesus wept? Verse 35, it's the shortest verse in the Bible. You say, I can't memorize Bible verses. You can memorize that one. Jesus wept, right? And you're like, why would I memorize that? That's powerful. That's powerful. Why was Jesus weeping? Why was Jesus crying? You know, he knew full well what was about to happen, the miracle that was about to take place, that Lazarus was soon about to walk out of that tomb. And yet, he was weeping because he saw his friends. He saw his friends and he saw their pain. And he was crying with them. And when you're hurting, when you're going through something, you're weeping, you can know Jesus sees what you're going through. He sees it. He cares. He's there with you in your pain. And then in verse 39, Jesus said, take away the stone, he said. But Lord, said Martha, the sister of the dead man, by this time there is a bad odor, for he has been there for 4 days. For 4 days. I love the King James Version, verse 39, and it says, by this time he stinketh. All right? Turn to the person next to you and say, I stinketh. I didn't think it'd be nice to tell them they stinketh, so you're saying it about yourself. Verse 40, then Jesus said, did I not tell you that if you believe, you will see the glory of God? So they took away the stone. Then Jesus looked up and said, Father, I thank you that you have heard me. I knew that you always hear me, but I said this for the benefit of the people standing here, that they may believe that you sent me. And when he had said this, Jesus called in a loud voice, Lazarus, come out. You know, Jesus had to call Lazarus by name. He had to call him specifically, because if he had just offered a general come out, who knows how many dead people would have come walking out that day, right? So he said, Lazarus, come out. And verse 44, the dead man came out, his hands and feet wrapped with strips of linen and a cloth around his face, all wrapped up, so wrapped in discouragement and doubt and delay. Look at this. He can't even see. Now, here's the cool thing. Lazarus comes out of the tomb. He comes out of the grave, and now Lazarus is alive. You did good. You did great. Let's give it up for Richard. All right. Thank you, Richard. That's incredible. Lazarus, welcome back. How does it feel? Hop on up here. Hop on up. Yeah. All right. Yes, he's alive. Let's celebrate. Powerful. Isn't that incredible? Fully alive by the resurrection power of Jesus. But do you see Lazarus has got a problem. He's still got a problem because, he can't walk in freedom as long as he's all wrapped up in his grave clothes. He can't, and sometimes we're alive, but we're still talking like a dead person. We're still acting like a dead person. We're still doubting like a dead person. There's faith inside, and yet he can't even see clearly to walk ahead and to follow after God, right? So we've got to stop dressing like we're dead. You've got to stop dressing like you're dead. And so in John 11:39, verse 44, Jesus said to them, take off the grave clothes and let him go. Okay? Now, Jesus, he could have just been like, he raised Lazarus from the dead. It would have been really simple for him to go, bam, and like the grave clothes just like fly off. But see, Jesus did and does what only Jesus can do, and then he asks us to do what we can do. And so who's the them he's talking to? The them. He's talking to the community, the family, the friends of Lazarus, and he's saying, you help him. Help to set him free, okay? And he invites them into his miracle, right? And so we see people all around us. We see people all around us in our church family, in our community, and they're going through stuff. They're going through things. And we cry out to God. We're like, we see this, and we say, God, why don't you do something about this? Why don't you help them? And God says, I already did. I made you aware of the situation. I gave you some resources so that you could come around this person and help set them free, help them in the process of unwrapping them. And that's what we're all about as a church, at the Konnection Church. We're all about taking people. Listen, come on. Jesus is the one who brings the dead to life. He's the one who gives new life, and then he brings them into this community, and he says, now you come around them and you help them. And if you're Lazarus, if you're in that situation where you've just come into new life, you got to get around some alive people. So I'm going to call some alive people up on the stage right now to help. I got Michael Villarreal. Okay, Michael, come on. Michael's one of our group leaders. I got Justin Leon. Come on, Justin. Let's give it up. Justin, if you came to Candy Palooza yesterday, you saw Justin was our Noah yesterday. All right. We've also got Delia Castillo. Delia, come on up. Delia. All right, Delia, you guys, I want you to come around him, and I want you to begin to set him free, begin to unwrap him. Some people, they look at a person who's all wrapped up in all of this stuff, and they say, why don't they help themselves? Why don't they just unwrap themselves? Why don't they just help themselves? In fact, some people say, that Bible verse, God helps those who help themselves. That's not in the Bible. Okay, the Bible doesn't say that. I think Benjamin Franklin said that. But the opposite is true. The opposite is true. God helps those who realize they're helpless to help themselves, that they can't help themselves because we're dead in our sin, and we need people to come around us and to help us, and we need God's help. And he wants us as a church to come around in our connection groups and come around people in our Celebrate Recovery ministry, and to come around people in our men's ministry and youth ministry and kids ministry and women's ministry and all of the ministries, for us to come around people and to be involved in the process of setting them free. Because, the thing is, people need help, but we get something out of this as well. We get to be involved in what God is doing, and there's nothing else like it. Listen, real community is more than just showing up on Sunday morning. Real community is getting our hands dirty with the bandages and it's getting in the trenches with people and walking through them, walking through the hurt with them. And let's see how it's going here. You guys getting this? You're doing great. Sometimes it's a process. Sometimes it takes time. But over time, look, the dead man, he's alive. He can even start doing something. Look at that. That's so great. That's so great. But, he has to get himself in a place, in a community. That means being around some people. That means being here and going to a connection group and getting involved where you got some people who will come around you, who will love you. And today, God wants you to know that you don't have to wear those old grave clothes anymore. You can be set free. I want you guys, no. I want you guys to show him some love. Show him some love right here. Come on. We're wearing all these clothes, these grave clothes of doubt and denial and discouragement and depression and defeat and disobedience and death. Listen, it's time to take them off. It's time to start living like you're alive, because that's what Jesus came to do. He came to set you free. Let me tell you, God may not answer your prayer the way you want, when you want, the way you think it should be. But I'll promise you this, he never disappoints. He always comes through, and he's going to come through in your situation. Listen, dead doesn't mean done. God can turn, he turns minuses into pluses. He turns crucifixions into resurrections. 4 days dead isn't dead in God's world. And it's time to come out of the grave and start to live again. Start to live in freedom. Why did Jesus come into the world? Why did he come? He didn't come for us to just sort of float through life and just exist and be consumers and blend in with our culture and be like everyone else and be phony and fake and materialistic and selfish. That's not life. That's not life. John 10:10, Jesus said the thief comes only to steal and to kill and destroy. But Jesus says, Jesus came into the world that you might have life and have it to the full, have it joyfully, have it abundantly, have that God kind of life like no other. That's the kind of life he has for you. Jesus came so you can live. Listen, we get it twisted. Sometimes we think, oh, this is religion. It's all about just kind of how you act and checking all these boxes. Listen, Jesus didn't come to make bad people good. Jesus came to make dead people alive. That's why he came into the world. John 11:25, Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. He who believes in me will live, even though he dies, and whoever lives and believes in me will never die. Do you believe this? Jesus said, I am resurrection life. I am the life that's really worth living, and he wants you to live that kind of life. Listen, all things are possible with him today, and he can speak into those dead places in your life. He can begin to bring them to life again. And for most of us today, the question is not, can God do something great in my life? It's not, can God work a miracle in my life today? Does God see? Does he care? The question for us is this same question that Jesus asked, and that is, do you believe this? Do you believe this today? Are you filled with faith? That's what God is wanting to do in your life today, to fill you with faith and with trust. Do you believe enough to trust Jesus in your life with everything that you've got? Let's stand together and let's pray. I don't know what it is in your life that you would say is dead today, that he needs to resurrect. We're trusting him in our relationships, in our work, in our finances, in our health, in all of these areas. God, bring us hope back. Resurrect our hope. Resurrect our faith and our trust in you, God. But for some in this room, it is a matter of life and death. It is that there are people in this room or watching online, wherever you're watching this, that you're saying, I've been walking around just floating through life like the walking dead, and I need the life that only Jesus can give. He wants to give you that life today if you will come to him, if you'll put your life in his hands and trust in him. And if that's you today, with every head bowed, every eye closed, would you just slip your hand in the air? God is moving all over this room today, changing hearts and lives. There are people who are saying, today is my day. I need the life that only Jesus can give, that he bought on the cross when he gave his life and he rose again. And you would say this, you'd say, dear Jesus, I need the life that only you can give. Thank you for giving your life for me. Today I give you the pieces of my life. I want to turn away from my sin, and I want to turn to your forgiving, loving arms. And I ask that you would forgive me, that you would change me, make me part of your forever family, make me fully alive today. Fill me with your Spirit's power, resurrection power, so that I can follow after you each and every day of my life. Thank you for saving me. In Jesus' name, amen.